This, in detail, is a bit of a spat with the Indian government on Indian migration. But, of course, there is a wider issue here about whether, in fact, migration is a net benefit to an economy to help with growth.
There is indeed. And there are two basic arguments. The one that's really preferred by the Treasury in particular is that by allowing as many people into the country, it creates growth through the term gross domestic product, GDP. And they like to see that because they then are able to say that we can increase taxes by having people working. But if you listen to Jacob Rees-Mogg, those on his wing of the Conservative Party and those economists who don't really like the idea of immigration being linked solely to GDP will point to the fact that there is another definition, which is basically gross domestic product per person, which is like, how do you divide the gross domestic product by the number of people in the country? And when you look at that, you often see that the wealth of individuals in the country actually decline. And that's why you see the cost of increases to hospitals, in schools, infrastructure, and the taxation levels that are supposed to come through from GDP rises don't really affect all the country, and in particularly the poorest areas of the country, the city centres which receive most of the immigration that you're perhaps seeing from the Channel migrants coming in, or those who are coming in to work in low-skilled areas. They're the ones who get impacted the worst.
Just want to ask you a question on small boats. Everybody would agree nobody wants to see people risking their lives, making these terrible journeys in search of a better life. The government have announced several initiatives and the taxpayers paid millions of pounds to try and stop it happening. Nothing seems to be working. What should be done?
Well, you're quite right. First of all, if you look at this case, the Rwanda process that's been challenged in the court today, and we've been watching this now since August and September, is key if you really want to put a proper deterrent in for the people smugglers who really are pushing people across as best they can now and as quickly as they can in order to avoid any potential that their clients will be removed to Rwanda. And it's recognised as being a reasonable deterrent. Why is it done so? Otherwise, you wouldn't have had 3 attempts, or, well, not really attempts, there are actually 3 cases of the immigration industry challenging the government in the courts. But if you look at the background of this, you can see that Denmark is considering using this option for Rwanda too. There are other countries that are looking at putting their asylum applications across to African nations as well. And they do so because of the cost. The huge cost to their own exchequers. If you look at housing costs here in the UK, it's £5.2 million a day in addition to the big deals that they do. So Rwanda policy has to work. And then I think the government's going to need to consider other options of immediately taking people out of the UK somewhere else so that they can have perhaps huge camps like the Australians planned originally to have on the islands so that they can do the assessment there. You need something to remove the excessive cost from the UK and put it in to a lower cost area.